I used to think I knew the shape of my life, not in any grand way, just the ordinary knowing that comes from living in the same rhythm for years. I knew how Jordan took his coffee, 2 sugars and a splash of cream, always in the blue mug his mother gave us. I knew he'd leave his reading glasses on the kitchen counter and spend 10 minutes looking for them. I knew the sound of his key in the lock at 6:15, the way he'd drop his bag by the door and call out to ask what was for dinner. We had a good life. Not perfect, but good. We'd been married 14 years. We had a house in Baltimore, a split level with a backyard that needed more attention than either of us gave it. We had routines. Thursday nights, we'd order Chinese and watch whatever was on. Sundays, I'd make breakfast while he read the paper. Small things. The kind that add up to a life without you noticing. Jordan worked in logistics for a distribution company. Long hours sometimes, but steady. I worked part-time at a nonprofit that helped formerly incarcerated people find housing. The pay wasn't much, but I liked the work. It felt like something that mattered. We weren't one of those couples always talking about their feelings or planning elaborate date nights. We were comfortable. I thought that was enough. Before we dive in, I want to ask you something. Where in the world are you listening from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love seeing how far our community reaches. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Your support truly helps this community grow. Thank you for being here. The accident happened on a Tuesday in March. Jordan had been driving home from a late meeting, something about inventory management at a warehouse in Glen Burnie. A truck ran a red light at the intersection near our neighborhood. The police said Jordan probably didn't even see it coming. I was folding laundry when I got the call. A woman's voice, calm and professional, asking if I was Mrs. Coleman, asking if Jordan Coleman was my husband. My hands went still on a towel that was still warm from the dryer. She told me there had been an accident. She told me which hospital. She said I should come now. I don't remember the drive. I remember my sister Renee calling me back after I'd left her a voicemail, her voice tight with worry. I remember walking through the automatic doors of the emergency room and the smell of antiseptic and floor cleaner. I remember a nurse leading me down a hallway with fluorescent lights that hummed. Jordan was unconscious. They said he had a severe concussion, broken ribs, internal bleeding. They used words like stable but critical, and the next 48 hours. I sat in a chair next to his bed and watched machines beep and hiss. His face was swollen, bruised along the left side. There was a bandage on his forehead. His hands were scraped raw. Renee came and sat with me. She brought coffee in paper cups and didn't talk much, just sat there being present. My mother came the next morning with a bag of clothes for me and some toiletries. She touched my shoulder and said a quiet prayer. I let her. It felt like something to hold on to. Jordan woke up on the 3rd day. Groggy, confused, in pain. The doctors said he was lucky. I looked at him with tubes and wires and thought about how strange that word was. But he was alive, and that was something. They kept him in the hospital for a week. Then he came home, and I became a caretaker. He couldn't work. He could barely walk without help at first. I took a leave from my job. I measured out painkillers and helped him to the bathroom and made sure he ate something, even when he said he wasn't hungry. I washed his back in the shower because he couldn't lift his arms above his shoulders. It was exhausting, but it was also simple in a way. There was a clear task. Take care of him. Help him heal. I didn't think about anything beyond that. The hours in those first days ran together. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and listen to Jordan breathing, making sure the rhythm was steady. The house made sounds I'd never noticed before. Pipes creaking, the furnace clicking on, the settling of wood beams. I'd lie there counting his breaths until my own heartbeat slowed. In the mornings, I'd get up before the alarm and make coffee. The machine was loud in the quiet house. I'd stand at the kitchen window while it brewed, watching the sky change from black to gray to pale blue. Birds would gather at the feeder we'd put up years ago and forgotten about. Sparrows, mostly. Some cardinals. They moved in quick, nervous bursts. I'd pour the coffee and take it upstairs. Jordan would be awake staring at the ceiling. I'd help him sit up, adjust the pillows behind him, hand him the mug. He'd take it with both hands because one wasn't steady enough on its own. We wouldn't talk. He'd sip the coffee slowly. I'd sit on the edge of the bed and look out the window until he finished. Then the routine would start. Pills from the orange bottles lined up on the nightstand. Water in a glass I'd refill 3 times a day. His phone, the backup phone, charging on the dresser, its screen dark. I'd help him stand, one hand under his elbow, and we'd make our way to the bathroom. The hallway seemed longer than it had before, each step deliberate, slow. The carpet worn in the middle from years of walking back and forth. I'd wait outside the bathroom door, listening, the water running, the cabinet opening, the toilet flushing, small confirmations that he was managing, that he was still there. When he came out, his face would be pale, damp with effort. We'd make our way back to the bed or downstairs to the couch, depending on the day. The second phone appeared 2 weeks after he came home. I was looking for his insurance card. Jordan had an appointment with a specialist, and I'd been told to bring all his documentation. I'd searched the kitchen drawer where we kept important papers, the file box in the closet, his wallet. Nothing. Then I remembered he sometimes kept things in his work bag, an old leather messenger bag he'd had since before we were married. The bag was in the closet in our bedroom, pushed to the back. I pulled it out and unzipped the main compartment. Papers, receipts, a protein bar that had probably been there for months. I checked the side pockets. That's when I felt it. A phone. Not his phone. His regular phone had been destroyed in the accident, and he'd been using an old backup since he got home. This was different, smaller, an older model. Something cheap. I held it in my hand. It was turned off. The screen was blank. There was a small crack in the corner of the case. The weight of it was strange, heavier than it looked. I stood there in the closet for a long time, just looking at it. The light from the bedroom window cut across the floor. I could hear Jordan in the bathroom, running water. The phone sat in my palm, silent and dense. I turned it over once. The back was scratched. Someone had used it often. I thought about pressing the power button, watching the screen come to life, seeing whose name appeared first. But I didn't. I put the phone back in the side pocket of the bag. I zipped it closed. I pushed the bag back into the closet a little farther than before, behind a box of winter scarves, and I didn't say a word. That night, I made chicken and rice for dinner. I set Jordan's plate in front of him at the kitchen table and sat down across from him with my own. We ate without speaking, the fork scraping against ceramic, the sound of chewing. Outside, a car alarm went off and then stopped. Jordan took small bites, careful because his ribs were still tender. I pushed rice around my plate and tried to swallow bites that felt too big. After dinner, I washed the dishes. The water ran hot over my hands until they turned red. I scrubbed the plates longer than I needed to. Jordan had moved to the couch in the living room. I could hear the television, voices, and music I didn't recognize. I dried each dish and put it away in the cabinet. Then I wiped down the counters. Then the stove. Then I stood at the sink and looked out at the backyard where the grass had grown too long and the bushes needed trimming. The phone sat in the closet. I didn't look at it again that night, but I knew it was there. When I went upstairs to get ready for bed, I paused at the closet door, my hand on the knob. I could open it. I could take the phone out again. I could turn it on and know. But I let go of the knob and walked to the bathroom instead. I brushed my teeth, watching my face in the mirror. The same face I'd seen every day for years. Nothing had changed on the outside. I spit toothpaste into the sink and rinsed my mouth and went to bed. Jordan was already there, his eyes closed, his breathing steady. I turned off the light and lay down, staring into the darkness. The days became a loop. I'd wake up and make coffee and help Jordan with his morning routine. I'd make breakfast, toast with butter, scrambled eggs, oatmeal with brown sugar. He'd eat what he could. I'd clean up. Then the long stretch of morning would open up before us. Sometimes I'd do laundry. I'd carry the basket down to the basement and sort clothes by color, whites in one pile, darks in another. The washer would fill with water and start its cycle. I'd sit on the bottom step and listen to it churn and spin. The basement smelled like detergent and mildew. A strip of daylight came through the small window near the ceiling. I'd watch dust move through it, slow and aimless. When the washer finished, I'd transfer everything to the dryer. The metal drum was warm inside. I'd start the dryer and go back upstairs. Jordan would be on the couch with his laptop, typing slowly, reading emails. I'd ask if he needed anything. He'd say no. I'd go into the kitchen and wipe down surfaces that were already clean. Afternoon would come. The light in the house would shift, becoming softer, longer. I'd sit in the armchair in the living room with a book, but I'd read the same page over and over without absorbing any words. The clock on the mantel would tick. Jordan would close his laptop and lean his head back against the couch, his eyes closed. I'd wonder if he was sleeping or just resting. I wouldn't ask. Sometimes the phone would ring, Renee checking in, or my mother or someone from Jordan's office. I'd answer and say yes, he's doing better. Yes, we're managing. Yes, thank you for asking. I'd hang up and the silence would return, heavier than before. I started noticing the mail. It would come around 2 o'clock each afternoon. I'd hear the mail truck rumble past, then the squeak of the mailbox opening and closing. I'd wait 5 minutes, 10, before going out to check it. Bills, mostly. Catalogs. Sometimes a card from someone we knew. I'd bring it all inside and sort through it at the kitchen table, making piles. Important, junk, uncertain. Jordan would glance over occasionally, but say nothing. I'd file away what needed filing and throw away the rest. The hours between lunch and dinner were the hardest. Too much time, too little to fill it with. I'd find myself standing in rooms trying to remember why I'd gone there. The living room, the bathroom, the bedroom. I'd stand there looking at familiar objects, a lamp, a picture frame, a stack of books, and they'd seem strange, like I'd never seen them before. One afternoon, I spent 20 minutes organizing the spice cabinet, pulling out jars, wiping the shelves, arranging everything alphabetically. Allspice, basil, cinnamon, garlic powder. Jordan came into the kitchen for water and glanced at what I was doing. "Spring cleaning?" he asked. "Just organizing." "Looks good." He took his water and left. I finished with the spices and moved on to the pantry. Canned goods on one shelf, pasta and rice on another, baking supplies on the third. By the time I was done, an hour had passed. The pantry looked no different than before, really, just slightly neater. I closed the door and checked the clock. Still 2 hours until I needed to start dinner. Jordan's recovery was slow. Physical therapy twice a week, follow-up appointments with his doctor. He slept a lot. The painkillers made him foggy, distant. I told myself that was why he seemed different, why he was quieter than usual, why sometimes I'd catch him staring at nothing with a look I couldn't name. The days settled into a new pattern. I'd wake up first, make coffee, set out his medications with a glass of water. He'd come down the stairs slowly, one hand on the railing, and sit at the kitchen table. We'd eat breakfast, mostly in silence. Toast. Eggs sometimes. The newspaper between us like a buffer. Then I'd clean up while he checked his emails. He'd make calls to his office, his voice professional and steady, like everything was normal. Like he wasn't sitting there in sweatpants at 10 in the morning because he couldn't drive yet and couldn't sit in an office chair for more than an hour without his ribs aching. I'd go to the grocery store, run errands, come back and make lunch. We'd eat, he'd take a nap, I'd fold laundry or pay bills or sit on the couch with a book I couldn't focus on. The afternoons were the longest. The house was too quiet. I'd hear the clock in the hallway ticking, the refrigerator humming, Jordan shifting in bed upstairs, the mattress creaking. Outside, neighbors would come and go, car doors closing, dogs barking, life continuing like it always did. I started taking walks in the afternoons. I'd put on my sneakers and go out the front door and head down the street without any particular destination. The neighborhood was the same as it had always been. Kids riding bikes, a man washing his car in his driveway, a woman pushing a stroller. I'd walk past their houses and nod if they looked up, but mostly I kept my head down. There was a park a few blocks away. Nothing special, just a playground and some benches and a small pond. I'd sit on a bench and watch ducks glide across the water. They'd dip their heads under, then pop back up, shaking droplets off their feathers. Sometimes someone else would be there, an elderly man feeding the ducks from a paper bag, teenagers sitting on the grass talking and laughing. I'd stay until my legs started to feel stiff from sitting, then I'd walk back home. Jordan would be awake when I got back, usually downstairs again. He'd ask where I'd been. I'd say I went for a walk. He'd nod. I'd go into the kitchen and start dinner. The evenings were mechanical. I'd cook something simple: pasta, chicken, soup. We'd eat in front of the TV because it was easier than sitting at the table with nothing to say. After dinner, Jordan would go upstairs early. I'd hear the bathroom sink running, the creak of the bed as he got in, then silence. I'd stay downstairs, moving from room to room without purpose. I'd straighten the pillows on the couch. I'd water the plants on the windowsill. I'd stand in the kitchen and look at the closed cabinets, the clean counters, the emptiness of it all. Then I'd turn off the lights and go upstairs. In bed, I'd lie on my side facing the window. Jordan would be asleep already or pretending to be. The room would be dark except for the streetlight outside casting a pale glow through the curtains. I'd think about the phone in the closet, not about turning it on or looking at it, just about its existence. Its presence in the house like a weight I could feel even when I wasn't looking at it. Eventually, I'd close my eyes and wait for sleep to come. And sometimes it did, and sometimes it didn't. At night, I started having trouble sleeping. I'd lie in bed and listen to Jordan breathing beside me, and I'd try to match my breath to his, thinking maybe that would calm me. But my mind would keep working, turning over thoughts I didn't want to examine. I'd get up and go to the bathroom, sit on the edge of the tub in the dark, my hands folded in my lap. The tile floor was cold under my feet. I'd sit there for 10 minutes, 15, until my legs started to ache. Then I'd go back to bed and try again. Some mornings I'd wake up before dawn. The room would be that deep blue gray that comes right before sunrise. Jordan would be asleep, his face turned away from me. I'd get up carefully, trying not to wake him, and go downstairs. I'd sit at the kitchen table in the dark, my hands wrapped around a mug of water I had no intention of drinking. The house would be perfectly still, no sounds except the occasional creak of the walls, the hum of the refrigerator. I'd sit there until light started to come through the windows. Then I'd get up and start the coffee and begin the day again. One Wednesday morning, I stood at the kitchen window longer than usual. The coffee had finished brewing, but I hadn't poured it yet. I just stood there, watching a squirrel run along the fence at the back of the yard. It stopped, looked around, ran to a tree, climbed up out of sight. A minute passed. 2 minutes. The coffee maker clicked off. I poured 2 cups and took one upstairs to Jordan. Thursday, I woke up with a headache. Not severe, just persistent. A dull ache behind my eyes. I took aspirin with my morning coffee. Jordan asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. The headache stayed with me through the morning, through lunch, into the afternoon. I lay on the couch while Jordan worked at the kitchen table. The TV was on, but I wasn't watching it. Just colors and movement and voices. Eventually, the headache faded, and I got up and made dinner. Friday, the mail brought a medical bill. I opened it at the kitchen table, scanned the numbers. Insurance had covered most of it, but there was still a balance. Not huge, but not nothing. I filed it with the other bills to pay at the end of the month. Jordan came into the kitchen and I showed him. He nodded, said he'd check with his HR department about secondary coverage. I put the bill away and started making a grocery list for the next day. One afternoon, I drove to the pharmacy to pick up Jordan's prescription refill. The parking lot was almost empty. Inside, I waited at the counter while the pharmacist checked the computer. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A woman behind me was talking on her phone, her voice too loud, laughing about something. The pharmacist said it would be 15 minutes. I said I'd wait. I sat in one of the chairs by the window and watched cars pull in and out of the parking lot. A mother with 2 small children, an elderly man moving slowly with a walker, a teenage girl texting while she walked. Everyone had somewhere to go, something they needed. I wondered if they could tell just by looking at me that something had shifted, that I was carrying something I didn't know what to do with. When I got home, Jordan was awake. Sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop, he looked up when I came in. "Get it okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, setting the bag on the counter. "Thanks." I put the prescription bottle next to his other medications. He went back to his laptop. I went upstairs to change clothes. The closet door was open slightly. I could see the edge of the bag behind the scarves. I closed the door and went back downstairs. The next morning, I vacuumed the entire house. It didn't really need it. I'd vacuumed earlier in the week, but I did it anyway. Living room, dining room, hallway, stairs, bedrooms. The vacuum was loud and the noise felt good, filling up the silence, giving me something to focus on. Jordan stayed in the spare room, working while I moved from room to room. When I was done, I emptied the vacuum canister and put everything away, and the house was quiet again. Sunday, I made pancakes for breakfast. Jordan ate 3, slowly, methodically. I ate 1 and pushed the rest around my plate. After breakfast, I washed the dishes while Jordan went upstairs to shower. The water ran for a long time. I dried the dishes, put them away, wiped down the counters. The water finally stopped. I heard Jordan moving around upstairs. I went to the living room and sat in the chair by the window and waited for nothing in particular. I went back to work after a month, just part-time at first. Jordan was well enough to be alone during the day by then. He'd started working from home, handling emails and calls for his company, easing back into things. I'd come home and find him at the kitchen table with his laptop, papers spread out, looking tired but functional. The bag stayed in the closet. I didn't check on it, but I knew it was there. Some mornings when I was getting dressed, I'd glance toward the closet and think about it, the weight of it, the silence inside it. Then I'd turn away and finish buttoning my blouse. At work, people asked how Jordan was doing. I said he was recovering well. They said that was good, that I must be relieved. I nodded and smiled and changed the subject. During lunch breaks, I'd sit in my car instead of the break room. I'd eat a sandwich and stare out the windshield at nothing in particular. Sometimes I'd check my phone for messages. There were never any that mattered. The office parking lot had a view of a strip mall across the street. I'd watch people going in and out of stores, the dollar store, the nail salon, the Chinese restaurant. They all moved with purpose, carrying bags, pushing carts, talking on phones. I'd finish my sandwich and wad up the wrapper and drop it in the paper bag. Then I'd just sit there until it was time to go back inside. My coworkers were kind. They'd ask how I was doing, if I needed anything. I'd say I was fine, thank them, and keep moving. There was a break room with a microwave and a refrigerator and a small table where people ate lunch. I avoided it. There was a bathroom down a long hallway where I could lock myself in a stall and close my eyes and breathe without anyone watching. I went there more than I needed to. I'd look at my face in the bathroom mirror. Same face, same hair, pulled back in the same way, same clothes, professional and neutral. Nothing on the outside had changed, but I felt like I was walking around wearing someone else's skin. One day, a coworker named Angela sat down across from me in the break room before I could leave. She asked about Jordan. I gave her the same answer I gave everyone. She nodded, stirred her coffee. "Must be hard," she said, "taking care of someone like that. My brother was in an accident a few years ago. Took months before things felt normal again." "Yeah," I said. "You holding up okay?" "I'm fine." She looked at me for a moment, then nodded. "Well, if you need anything." "Thanks." She left. I threw away my lunch half-eaten and went back to my desk. The afternoons at work were slow. I'd answer emails, update spreadsheets, make phone calls to clients. The work was good, important even, but I'd lost the thread of why it mattered. I'd sit at my desk and stare at the computer screen and have to force myself to focus on the words in front of me. At 3 o'clock, there was always a lull. The office would get quiet. People would be at meetings or out doing site visits. I'd sit there and listen to the hum of computers, the distant sound of someone talking on the phone, the air conditioning cycling on and off. I'd get up and walk to the water cooler, fill a paper cup, drink it slowly, then walk back to my desk and sit down and try to remember what I'd been working on. One afternoon, I spent an hour organizing my desk drawers. Pens in one compartment, paper clips in another, sticky notes in a third. I threw away old receipts and dried up highlighters and business cards from people I couldn't remember meeting. When I was done, the drawers looked exactly like they had before, just slightly neater. Weeks passed. Jordan grew stronger. He started walking without limping. He could shower on his own. He stopped taking the heavy painkillers and switched to over-the-counter pills. He talked about going back to the office soon, maybe just a few days a week at first. One Saturday morning, I was in the kitchen making coffee when Jordan came downstairs. It was earlier than usual. He stood in the doorway watching me. "You want some?" I asked, holding up the coffee pot. "Sure." I poured him a cup and handed it to him. He took it and sat down at the table. I leaned against the counter and drank my own coffee, looking out the window at the backyard. "I've been thinking," he said. I waited. "I should probably get back to the gym. Start building my strength back up." "That's good," I said. "Yeah." We stood there in silence. The coffee maker hissed as it finished brewing. Somewhere down the street, a lawnmower started up. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded and drank his coffee. I turned back to the window. The weekend passed like all the others. Saturday, I cleaned the house. Sunday, I went to the corner store for the newspaper. Jordan watched sports. I sat in the same room with a book. The sun moved across the walls. Evening came. We ate dinner. We went to bed. Monday, I went back to work. The routine continued, days blending into each other. Morning, work, home, dinner, bed. Jordan got stronger. I got more tired, not physically, but in some deeper way I couldn't name. That afternoon, I decided to clean out the garage. It had been years since we'd organized it properly, and it seemed like something productive to do. I opened the garage door and let the sunlight in. Boxes stacked against the walls, old gardening tools, a bicycle with a flat tire, Christmas decorations we hadn't used in years. I started pulling things out, making piles, keep, donate, throw away. The work was mindless, physical. I'd pick up a box, look inside, decide what to do with it. I found old photo albums from before we were married, a box of Jordan's college textbooks, a set of dishes we'd gotten as a wedding gift and never used. I sat on the concrete floor of the garage and flipped through the photo albums, Jordan smiling, younger, his arm around me laughing at something, us at the beach, at a concert, at someone's wedding. People I used to know. I closed the albums and put them in the keep pile. Then I went back to sorting through boxes until the sun started to set, and it was too dark to see clearly. I dragged everything back inside, reorganized slightly, closed the garage door. The house was quiet when I went back in. Jordan was in the living room, watching TV. I went upstairs and took a shower and let the hot water run over me until it started to turn cold. 3 weeks into being back at work, I was at my desk when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. I almost didn't answer, but then I thought maybe it was something about Jordan, something medical, so I picked up. "Is this Mrs. Coleman?" A woman's voice, young, uncertain. "Yes." There was a pause. I could hear breathing on the other end. "I'm looking for Jordan," she said. "He's not here." "Who is this?" Another pause. Longer. I'm a friend of his. From work." Something in her voice made my hand tighten around the phone. "He hasn't been answering his cell," she continued. "I just wanted to make sure he's okay, after the accident." "He's recovering," I said. My voice sounded flat, mechanical. "Who did you say you were?" "Just a friend. Can you tell him Simone called?" The line went dead. I sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen without seeing it. Simone. The name sat in my mind, heavy and specific. A friend from work. Jordan had never mentioned anyone named Simone. I set the phone down carefully. My hands were shaking. Around me, the office continued its normal rhythm, phones ringing, keyboards clicking, people talking. I took a breath and tried to focus on the document in front of me, but the words blurred together. For the rest of the day, I moved through my tasks mechanically, answering emails, making calls, updating files, but my mind was elsewhere, turning the name over and over. Simone, a friend from work. Why hadn't he mentioned her? Why was she calling me instead of calling him directly? That evening, I drove home in silence. No radio, no music, just the sound of the car and the traffic around me. I kept replaying the phone call, the woman's voice, the way she'd hesitated, the name. When I got home, Jordan was in the living room. I came in and set my bag down. He looked up. "Hey," he said, "how was work?" "Fine." I went into the kitchen and started pulling things out for dinner. My movements were automatic. Open the refrigerator, take out chicken, put it on the counter, turn on the oven. Jordan came into the kitchen. "You need help with anything?" "No." He stood there for a moment, then went back to the living room. I heard the TV come on. I stared at the chicken sitting on the counter and tried to figure out what I'd been planning to do with it. The name Simone stayed with me through dinner, through the evening, through the night. I didn't mention the call to Jordan. I kept waiting for him to say something, to mention her, to give me an explanation I hadn't asked for, but he didn't. We ate dinner, we watched TV, we went to bed. I lay awake in the dark, listening to Jordan breathe. The phone was in the closet, 10 feet away. Simone was out there somewhere, a voice on a phone line, a person I didn't know. I closed my eyes and tried to quiet my mind, but questions kept surfacing, one after another. Each one leading to others I didn't want to answer. The next morning, I got up and made coffee and went through the routine. Jordan came downstairs. We ate breakfast in silence. He went to work on his laptop. I got ready for work. The day unfolded like any other, but underneath it all, the name hummed like a current I couldn't turn off. The next day, I went through my routine at work without really being present. I answered emails. I attended a meeting. I ate lunch in my car. When I got home, Jordan was on the couch watching something on his laptop. "Someone called the house line for you today," he said. They hung up when I answered. My chest tightened. Did they say who it was? No, just hung up. "Probably a robocall," I said. "Yeah, probably." I went upstairs and changed out of my work clothes. The bag was still in the closet, pushed back behind the scarves. I stood there looking at it, then I closed the closet door and went back downstairs. That week was long. Each day felt stretched out, the hours moving slowly. I'd wake up tired and go through the motions. Coffee, breakfast, work, home, dinner, bed. Jordan's presence in the house was constant, but somehow we seemed to occupy different spaces, even when we were in the same room. He'd be on his laptop. I'd be washing dishes. We'd pass each other in the hallway with brief nods. I started noticing small things. The way he'd check his phone and then put it face down on the table. The way he'd go outside to take certain calls, standing in the backyard with his back to the house. The way he'd say he was tired and go to bed early, then I'd hear him moving around upstairs, awake, doing something I couldn't identify. Thursday evening, he got a call during dinner. He looked at the screen, then stood up quickly and walked outside. I watched him through the window, pacing in the backyard, one hand in his pocket. He stayed out there for 10 minutes, maybe 15. When he came back in, his face was flushed. "Work stuff," he said. I didn't respond. We finished eating in silence. One morning, I woke up before dawn again. The room was dark. Jordan was asleep beside me. I got up and went downstairs and sat at the kitchen table. I didn't turn on any lights. I just sat there in the darkness, my hands flat on the table, feeling the coolness of the wood under my palms. I thought about Simone. I thought about the phone in the closet. I thought about all the small moments over the past weeks that I'd noticed and then dismissed. I thought about Jordan's face when he thought I wasn't looking, guilty, distant, like he was somewhere else entirely. The sky started to lighten outside. Birds began to sing. I stayed at the table until Jordan came downstairs. He stopped when he saw me. "You're up early," he said. "Couldn't sleep?" "You want me to make the coffee?" "No, I'll do it." He sat down at the table while I got up and started the coffee maker. We didn't talk. The machine hissed and dripped. I poured 2 cups and handed one to him and sat back down. We drank our coffee in silence while the morning grew brighter around us. That afternoon, I left work early, told my supervisor I had a headache, which wasn't entirely untrue. I drove home through traffic, the sun bright through the windshield. When I got home, Jordan's car was gone. He'd started going into the office a few days a week. The house was empty. I stood in the hallway, listening to the silence. Then I went upstairs to our bedroom. The closet door was closed. I stood in front of it for a moment, my hand on the knob. Then I opened it. The bag was where I'd left it, behind the winter scarves. I pulled it out and set it on the bed, unzipped the side pocket. The phone was still there. I took it out and held it. Cool and smooth and heavier than I remembered. Friday afternoon, I left work early. I told my supervisor I had a headache, which wasn't entirely untrue. I drove home through traffic that was just beginning to build, the sun bright and harsh through the windshield. When I pulled into the driveway, Jordan's car wasn't there. He'd started driving again, going to the office a few days a week. The house was empty. I went inside and stood in the hallway for a moment, listening to the silence. Then I went upstairs. I opened the closet. I pulled out the bag from behind the scarves. I unzipped the side pocket and took out the phone. I held it in my hand. It was cool, smooth, heavier than I remembered. I looked at the power button. My thumb hovered over it. Then I heard a car pull into the driveway. Jordan's car. The engine cut off. A door slammed. I put the phone back in the bag. I zipped it closed. I pushed it back behind the scarves. I closed the closet door and went downstairs. Jordan came in through the front door carrying his laptop bag. "Hey," he said, "you're home early." "Headache," I said. "You okay?" "I'm fine. Just need to lie down for a bit." "Okay." I went back upstairs and lay down on the bed. I heard Jordan moving around downstairs. The refrigerator opening. Water running. His footsteps on the stairs. He appeared in the doorway. "I'm going to work in the spare room for a bit," he said. "Holler if you need anything." "Okay." He left. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my heart beating too fast. Days passed, a week, 2 weeks. The phone stayed in the closet. Jordan went to the office more regularly. I went to work, came home, made dinner, went to bed. We were polite to each other, distant like roommates with nothing in common. Renee called one evening. I was standing at the kitchen sink washing dishes from dinner. Jordan was in the living room watching TV. "How are you?" Renee asked. "I'm fine." "You sure? You sound tired." "I am tired." "How's Jordan?" "He's okay. Back at work mostly." "That's good." There was a pause. I could hear her kids in the background arguing about something. "You should come over this weekend," she said. "Just you. We can have lunch, catch up." "Maybe." "Come on. You've been cooped up taking care of him for weeks. You need a break." "I'll think about it." Think hard. After we hung up, I stood at the sink for a while, looking out the window at the dark backyard. The dishes were done, but I kept standing there, my hands in the cooling water. Saturday, I told Jordan I was going to Renee's for lunch. He barely looked up from his laptop. "Okay," he said. "Have fun." Renee's house was in a neighborhood 20 minutes away. She had 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, and a husband who worked construction. The house was always loud, chaotic, full of life. When I walked in, her youngest son was building something with Legos on the living room floor while her daughter watched videos on a tablet. "Hey!" Renee came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She hugged me. "I'm so glad you came. Thanks for inviting me. Come on, lunch is almost ready." We sat in her kitchen while her husband took the kids to the park. Renee had made chicken salad and set out crackers and grapes. We ate and talked about her kids, about her job at the hospital, about nothing particularly important. "So," she said eventually, "how are you really doing?" "I'm fine." "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." She looked at me. "Is it?" I took a bite of chicken salad, chewed, swallowed. "Things are complicated." "How?" I told her about Simone's phone call, about the name I'd never heard before, about Jordan's behavior, the secrecy, the distance. I didn't tell her about the phone in the closet. I wasn't ready for that conversation yet. Renee listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and let out a long breath. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I don't know." "Do you think he's—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. "I don't know," I said again. She reached across the table and took my hand. "Whatever it is, whatever you find out, you're going to be okay." "How do you know?" "Because you're stronger than you think you are." I wanted to believe her. I squeezed her hand and nodded. I stayed at Renee's for another hour, helping her fold laundry and listening to her talk about the kids' school and her husband's new project. Normal things, small things, the kind of conversation that doesn't require anything from you except presence. When I drove home, the afternoon light was long and golden. The streets were quiet. I took my time, driving below the speed limit, letting the car carry me forward while my mind drifted. Jordan's car was still in the driveway when I got home. I sat in my car for a few minutes before going inside. The engine ticked as it cooled. A neighbor was mowing their lawn a few houses down. The sound was steady, mechanical, oddly soothing. I finally got out and went inside. Jordan was in the kitchen making a sandwich. "How was Renee's?" he asked. "Good, good." He finished making his sandwich and went back to the living room. I stood in the kitchen listening to the TV come on in the other room and felt the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on me like water. Another week went by. The routines continued. Coffee in the morning, work, dinner, silence. I moved through the days without feeling much of anything. Numbness had settled over me like a blanket, dulling everything. One evening, Jordan's phone rang while we were eating dinner. He looked at the screen and stood up quickly. "I need to take this," he said, and walked outside. I sat at the table, my fork suspended halfway to my mouth. Through the window, I could see him pacing in the backyard, one hand in his pocket, his head down. He talked for 5 minutes, maybe 10. When he came back in, his face was flushed. "Work stuff," he said. "Okay." We finished eating in silence. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I got up and went downstairs. The house was dark except for the streetlight shining through the front windows. I walked through the rooms, living room, dining room, kitchen, not looking for anything, just moving. I ended up standing at the kitchen sink, looking out at the backyard. The moon was nearly full, casting pale light on the grass and the trees at the edge of our property. I thought about all the nights I'd stood in this exact spot, washing dishes or waiting for water to boil or just staring out into the dark. How many hours had I spent here? How many had been real, and how many had I spent living in something that wasn't what I thought it was? I went back upstairs eventually. Jordan was still asleep, or still pretending to be. I got back into bed and lay there until morning light came through the curtains. The next day was Sunday. I went to the corner store for the paper like I always did. Ahmed was behind the counter. He smiled when I came in. "Good morning," he said. "Morning. How is your husband?" "He's better?" "Yes, much better." "This is good. You tell him Ahmed says hello." "I will." I paid for the paper and walked home slowly. The morning was cool, pleasant. A few people were out walking dogs or jogging. A woman watering her garden waved at me. I waved back. At home, I made breakfast. Jordan came down and we went through our usual routine. He read the paper. I cleaned up. He went upstairs to shower. I started laundry. The day unfolded exactly like every other Sunday, but something was different. I could feel it in my chest, a tightness that wouldn't ease. I kept moving, kept doing the tasks in front of me, but my mind was somewhere else, circling around questions I couldn't answer and didn't want to ask. In the afternoon, I sat in the living room while Jordan watched a game on TV. The sound washed over me. Announcers talking, crowd noise, commercials. I stared at a spot on the wall above the TV, my hands folded in my lap, and tried to figure out what I was going to do, but I couldn't figure it out, not yet. So I just sat there, waiting for something to shift, for some clarity to arrive. It didn't come. Simone called again 2 days later. I was at work when my cell phone rang. Same unknown number. This time I answered immediately. Hello? Mrs. Coleman? That same young voice, uncertain and tentative. Yes, it's Simone. I called before. I'm sorry to bother you, but I really need to talk to Jordan. It's important. He's at work. I've tried his office. He's not answering. Then I guess he doesn't want to talk, I said. There was silence on the line. I could hear her breathing. Look, she said finally, I don't want to cause problems. We need to figure some things out. What things? Another pause. I think you should ask him. I'm asking you. I can't. I shouldn't have called. I'm sorry. The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, my heart pounding. Around me, the office continued its mundane rhythm. Someone laughed at a desk across the room. A printer whirred. My computer screen had gone to sleep, showing a blank, dark rectangle. I set the phone down and stared at my hands. They were shaking. That evening, I got home before Jordan. I went straight upstairs. I opened the closet, I pulled out the bag. I took out the phone. This time, I didn't hesitate. I pressed the power button. The screen lit up. A logo appeared, then a lock screen. A generic blue background, no personal photo. There was a passcode, 4 digits. I tried Jordan's birthday, wrong. I tried our anniversary, wrong. I tried my birthday, wrong. The phone locked me out, saying I had one more attempt before it would disable. I set it on the dresser and sat on the edge of the bed staring at it. I heard Jordan's car in the driveway, the engine cutting off, the car door slamming, his footsteps on the front walk. I picked up the phone. I thought about our address. The last 4 digits. I entered them. The phone unlocked. The front door opened downstairs. Hey, I'm home. I looked at the screen. Text messages. Dozens of them. I tapped the messages icon. The most recent conversation was with a contact saved only as S. Jordan? His voice from downstairs. You home? My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I opened the message thread. The messages went back months. Casual at first, then increasingly intimate. Plans to meet, complaints about schedules, endearments. In the most recent messages sent over the past few weeks, the tone had changed. Worry about his recovery, frustration at his silence, questions about when they'd see each other again. The last message was from yesterday. Please just talk to me. I'm going crazy not knowing if you're okay. I heard Jordan's footsteps on the stairs. I locked the phone and set it on the dresser. He appeared in the doorway. There you are, he said. How was your day? I looked at him, at his face, familiar and strange, at the man I'd been married to for 14 years, who I'd thought I knew. Fine, I said. Yours? Busy, I'm exhausted. He started taking off his work clothes, his back to me. I sat on the bed, the phone on the dresser between us, its dark screen reflecting nothing. I'm going to take a shower, he said. Okay. He gathered clean clothes and went into the bathroom. The door closed, water started running. I picked up the phone again and scrolled through more messages. There were photos, nothing explicit, but intimate. Simone smiling at the camera, Jordan's hand visible at the edge of the frame. A selfie of them together at what looked like a restaurant. Another of them on a couch, her head on his shoulder. I went through call logs, dozens of calls, some lasting an hour or more, all to and from the same number. The water shut off. I locked the phone and put it back on the dresser. Jordan came out of the bathroom, hair damp, dressed in sweatpants and a t-shirt. What do you want for dinner? He asked. I looked at him for a long moment. I need to tell you something, I said. He stopped moving. Something in my voice made him still. Okay. Simone called me. His face went pale. What? Twice. She's been trying to reach you. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, frozen. Who is she, Jordan? Don't lie to me. Not now. He closed his eyes, opened them. She's someone I work with. Is that all she is?" He didn't answer. "Jordan." "No," he said quietly. "That's not all she is." The air in the room seemed to thicken. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud in my ears. "How long?" I asked. "Does it matter?" "Yes." He sat down on the bed, not looking at me. "About 6 months. It started last fall." 6 months. While I was making him dinner every night, while we were ordering Chinese on Thursdays, while I was living in what I thought was our life together, he'd been living in another one too. "I found your phone," I said. "The other one. The one you kept in your bag." His head snapped up. "You went through my things?" "I was looking for your insurance card. I found it by accident." "Did you?" "Yes. Just now. I read your messages." He put his face in his hands. "God, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "How long were you planning to keep lying to me?" "I don't know. I didn't plan any of this. It just happened." "No," I said. "You made choices. Every single day. But you chose to lie to me." He didn't argue. He just sat there with his head in his hands. "Do you love her?" I asked. He was quiet for a long time. "I don't know." "That's not an answer." "I don't know what I feel. About her, about us, about anything." I stood up. My legs felt unsteady, but I forced myself to move. I walked to the dresser and picked up the phone. "I want you to leave," I said. "What?" "Leave, tonight. Go stay somewhere else." "Can we just talk about this?" "There's nothing to talk about. You've been having an affair for 6 months. You lied to me every day. What is there to say?" "I made a mistake. I know I did. But we can work through this." "No," I said. "We can't." He looked at me, his face stricken. "Please, don't do this. You did this, not me. I know, you're right. But just give me a chance to explain, to figure this out. I don't want your explanations. I want you to leave." He stood up slowly. "Okay, I'll go. But can we talk tomorrow? When we've both had time to think? Maybe." He started gathering things. His work clothes, his phone charger, his laptop. I watched him move around the room, this man I'd shared a home with for so long and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no relief, just emptiness. He paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I really am sorry." "So am I." He left. I heard him going down the stairs, heard the front door open and close. Then his car starting, pulling out of the driveway, driving away. I was alone. I sat on the bed and looked at the phone still in my hand. Then I set it on the nightstand, lay down, and stared at the ceiling until the room grew dark around me. In the days that followed, I moved through a fog. I went to work. I came home to an empty house. I made dinner for one. I slept poorly, waking in the middle of the night to find the bed too big, the house too quiet. Jordan texted me, called me, left voicemails asking if we could talk. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. Renee came over. My mother came over. They asked if I was okay. I said I didn't know. They sat with me, brought food I didn't eat, offered comfort I couldn't accept. "What are you gonna do?" Renee asked. "I don't know," I said. "Do you want to save the marriage?" "I don't know." "What do you want?" I looked at her. "I just want to not feel like this." "Like what?" "Empty. Like everything I thought was real wasn't." She took my hand. "You're going to get through this. I promise." I wanted to believe her. 3 days after Jordan left, I finally responded to one of his texts. I told him we could meet to talk, but not at the house. We agreed on a coffee shop near his new apartment. I got there first. I ordered tea I didn't want and sat at a table in the back. When Jordan walked in, he looked terrible, unshaven, tired, older somehow. He sat down across from me. "Thanks for meeting me," he said. "You said you wanted to talk." "I do." He folded his hands on the table. "I've been thinking a lot. About us, about what I did, about everything." I waited. "I know I messed up. I know there's probably no coming back from this, but I need you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I never wanted any of this to happen. But it did happen. I know. Why? I asked. Why did you do it? He looked down at his hands. I don't have a good answer. Things with us had gotten comfortable, maybe too comfortable. And she was there and she paid attention to me and I felt, I don't know, alive, I guess. And I didn't make you feel that way. It wasn't about you, it was about me. About something I was missing that I didn't even know I was missing. That's a bullshit answer. I know, I'm sorry. We sat in silence. Around us, people came and went. The espresso machine hissed. Someone laughed too loudly. What happens now? He asked. I don't know. Do you want to try to work through this? Go to counseling or something? I looked at him. Do you? If you want to, yeah. That's not what I asked. Do you want to? He was quiet. I don't know if it would help. Then why suggest it? Because I don't want to lose you. You already did, I said softly. His face crumpled. Don't say that. It's true. The moment you started lying to me, you lost me. You just didn't know it yet. So that's it? We're done? I think so. Yes. He nodded slowly, his eyes wet. Okay. Okay. We sat there for another minute. Then I stood up. I should go. Can I ask you one thing? What? How did you do it? How did you keep it together after you found the phone? You didn't say anything for weeks. I thought about that. About all the mornings I'd made coffee and set out his pills. About all the dinners we'd eaten in silence. About all the times I'd known something was wrong but hadn't pushed, hadn't demanded answers. I was waiting, I said. For what? For the truth to come to me. I didn't want to have to dig for it. I wanted to see what you would do. And? You kept lying. He nodded. There was nothing left to say. I walked out of the coffee shop into the afternoon light. The parking lot was half full, cars coming and going, people living their lives. I got in my car and sat there for a moment, my hands on the steering wheel, breathing. Then I started the engine and drove home. The next weeks were a blur of decisions and paperwork. I called a lawyer. Jordan called one too. We started the process of untangling our lives. Bank accounts, the house, the car. It was all remarkably civil. We'd both given up on fighting. Renee helped me pack up his things. We worked mostly in silence, folding clothes and wrapping picture frames and filling boxes with the accumulated debris of a marriage. When we got to the closet, I pulled out the messenger bag. It was empty now except for some old receipts and a pen that didn't work. What about that phone? Renee asked. The one you found. I looked at the dresser where it had been sitting for weeks. I'll take care of it. She watched me for a moment. You never did turn it on, did you? No. Good, she said quietly. You didn't need to. Jordan came to pick up his things on a Saturday morning. We were polite, distant, like acquaintances helping each other move. He loaded boxes into his car and thanked me for being reasonable about everything. I nodded. There wasn't much else to say. Before he left, he hesitated at the door. I hope you're okay, he said. I will be, I said, and I meant it. After he drove away, I went back upstairs. The phone was still on the dresser. I picked it up and carried it down to the kitchen. I stood there for a moment, holding it, feeling its weight one last time. Then I dropped it in the trash. The months after the divorce were strange. Not bad exactly, but unfamiliar. I had to relearn how to be alone, how to make decisions without considering someone else's preferences, how to fill the silence that used to be filled with his presence. I kept working at the nonprofit. I started going back to church more regularly, not for answers or guidance, but because it felt grounding. The rhythm of it, the familiarity. I had dinners with Renee and her husband. I spent time with my mother. I read books I'd been meaning to get to for years. I repainted the bedroom a soft gray, a color I'd always liked, but Jordan had said was too dark. People asked if I was dating, if I was ready to get back out there. I said no, not yet, maybe not for a long time. I wasn't looking for someone to fill the space Jordan had left. I was learning to be comfortable in it. Sometimes I thought about the accident and how everything had unraveled from that single moment. If the truck hadn't run the red light, if Jordan hadn't ended up in the hospital, if I hadn't gone looking for his insurance card, if I hadn't found the phone, would he still be lying to me? Would we still be sitting at the kitchen table on Thursday nights, ordering Chinese, pretending everything was fine? Maybe. Probably. But I didn't regret how it had all played out. I didn't regret choosing not to look at the phone, not to confront him immediately, not to demand explanations. By letting the truth come to me, I'd kept something intact. Not the marriage, that had been broken long before I knew it, but myself. Something inside me that felt solid and whole. One evening in late summer, I was sitting on the back porch with a glass of wine. The yard was overgrown, the grass too long, weeds pushing up through the flower beds. I'd have to deal with it eventually, but not tonight. The sky was turning pink and orange, the air cooling after a hot day. I could hear kids playing somewhere down the street, a dog barking in the distance, the soft hum of cicadas in the trees. Ordinary sounds. Peaceful sounds. I thought about Jordan briefly, wondered where he was, if he was sitting alone somewhere too, if he ever thought about what he'd lost. Then I let the thought go like smoke. I took a sip of wine and closed my eyes, feeling the breeze on my skin, the weight of my own body in the chair, solid and present. The phone was gone. The marriage was gone. But I was still here. I opened my eyes and watched the sky deepen to purple, watched the first stars appear, small and steady and bright. The evening stretched out around me, quiet and mine. I set down my glass and stood up. The boards of the porch creaked under my feet. I walked down the steps into the yard, the grass cool under my bare feet. I stood there for a moment, looking up at the sky, at the vastness of it. Then I turned and went back inside, leaving the door open behind me, letting the evening air follow me in. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And before you go, click on hype to help this video reach even more people. Your support keeps these voices alive and keeps our community growing. Thank you for listening.